Welcome, dear brothers and sisters. We are into the 16th ordinary Sunday of the year. Somebody asked me, what is the ordinary Sundays that you keep talking about? Well, here's it. The liturgical year is divided into different seasons, like, for example, Advent. So all the Sundays of Advent are called Sundays in Advent. And then we have another big season called Lent and Easter. And the Sundays in those seasons will be Sundays of Lent and Sundays in Easter. And then we have another major season, which is the ordinary season or ordinary time of the year. And what's the purpose of the ordinary time of the year? It's a time of growth. That is why if you look around me, it's all very green. So the color, the liturgical color for the ordinary time of the year is green, symbolizing growth. So today, this upcoming Sunday is the 16th Sunday in ordinary time. And I would like to read the gospel because the gospel is very short, just a few verses. So the gospel is taken from Mark chapter 6, verses 30 to 34. And this is what the gospel says. The apostles returned from their mission. They gathered around Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away to a deserted place by yourselves and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As Jesus went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. Now this is the gospel for the 16th Sunday of ordinary time. So what do we see here? We see that Jesus sent out his apostles to proclaim the kingdom. They proclaimed it joyfully, they healed, they restored people, and now they have returned. And they gather around their master, and they're so happy, and so many people, as the gospel said, were coming to them that they had no time to eat. So what does Jesus say? Let's pack our bags and go to a deserted place to rest a while. So what happens when he goes across? Their people are there in large numbers, and he looks at them, Jesus looks at them and says, this crowd is like sheep without a shepherd. In other words, he had compassion on them. So the theme for this Sunday is Jesus, the compassionate shepherd. So we have two key words in our title for our meditation today. And those two key words are compassionate and shepherd. So Jesus, the compassionate shepherd. So what is compassion? I have a few quotes that say, the purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Another one says, by compassion, we make others' misery our own. And so by reliving them, we relive ourselves also. And there's another one that says, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. And here's another one. There is no exercise better for the heart than reaching down and lifting up people. So here are some beautiful ways of understanding compassion. Compassion comes from a Greek or two Greek words, which means feelings for the other. Cum, which is with, and patio is to feel for and to have that sense of sharing with others. So compassion is to feel for somebody else. And that is what Jesus is doing here. When he sees that crowd, he sees them like a shepherd, like sheep without a shepherd. So Jesus sees compassion and feels compassionate for them. Do you and I see compassion around us? Yes or no? Yes, there are a lot of people who have compassion and show compassion to all of us. And maybe you are a very compassionate person. I experience God as compassionate. How is God compassionate to all of us? We have that beautiful psalm, Psalm 23, that says, "The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want, where He leads me to green pastures, where He gives me everything that I need." So you see how compassionate God is. God is there with a sense of feeling. We think that God has no feeling in Himself. God feels for us, and we see that feeling in Jesus. Does God punish us? Many of us think that God punishes us. Actually, God doesn't punish us. He didn't make us to punish us. If at all you think that God is punishing you, that's maybe bad thinking, because God didn't make us to punish us. God made us to love us. God made us so that His compassion can be shared with us. His compassion can overflow in us, because He is an ocean of compassion, an ocean of love. So why do we have so much of suffering, you may say? Well, suffering is caused by us. You really sit down and think about it. Suffering is caused by bad choices. You may say, "Father, I got cancer, so how can I say I made bad choices?" Actually, we don't know the causes of cancer. Maybe it is the wrong food, the wrong lifestyle. So we have to look into that. So why do we have so much of suffering? It's because most of us make bad choices. And my choice affects you, and your choice affects me. We are living in such an interconnected world that one choice made somewhere else has an impact in some other part of the world. So we are all interconnected. We are a human community together. That's why we need to live that communitarian life and care for each other and show compassion as Jesus has compassion. So how do we become compassionate? Well, that's a lifelong journey. God that we worship is the God that we live. If we worship a compassionate God, then we become compassionate. If we worship a God of terror, we will become people of terror. So we need to know who is our God that we worship. And here Jesus is telling us that He had compassion. He had compassion for the crowd. And what happened? He put away His own need for rest. He put away His own need for relaxation, and He took upon Himself the task of teaching that hungry crowd. Here is Jesus showing us how to be compassionate. Do you want to be compassionate? Look at Jesus more deeply, more personally. He will teach you how to be compassionate. The next key word in our meditation is Jesus, the compassionate shepherd. So shepherd. Jesus is the shepherd. What are the qualities of a shepherd? The qualities of a shepherd are many. Compassion, kindness, forgiveness, tenderness, gentleness, and readily available to his sheep, one who heals, one who binds, and one who welcomes, one who loves. So there are many qualities of a shepherd, and Jesus is that shepherd. What are the duties of a shepherd? The duties of a shepherd is to guard the sheep, care for the sheep, and to bring the sheep to the place where you can feed them, heal them, and give them a good life. They depend on you. And therefore, the duty of a shepherd is to defend his sheep, care for his sheep, and be there for his sheep. How is Jesus our shepherd? That's a very interesting question. How is Jesus my shepherd? Have you experienced Jesus as your shepherd in your daily life? The first thing of a shepherd is that he identifies with the sheep. And as a shepherd, he stinks of the smell of the sheep. And sometimes there's no distinction in the smell of the sheep and the smell of the shepherd. They are the same, because the shepherd is all the time with his sheep. And that's the same with Jesus. Jesus became one with us. John tells us in his gospel, "And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us." What a wonderful God we have. Who is our God? He is our shepherd, because He comes to dwell with us. Not only to dwell with us, he could have lived in a palace. He could have lived with the elite. But no, Jesus shares our human problems and our human limitations. That's a shepherd. A shepherd shares the struggles of the sheep, and the shepherd is there in the struggles of the sheep. And Jesus goes one step further. He took our place and died for us. Now, shepherds will not go to that extent. Shepherds will defend the sheep, and then when there's strong force applied to the shepherd, then the shepherd gives up. But he'll fight to the end. But Jesus fought to the end. Jesus died for us because he knew by giving up his life, he was going to win the victory for each one of us. And not only did he die for us, he's also risen for us, risen from the dead, so that he gives us hope. That is where the shepherd now manifests his real care and compassion for us. He rises from the dead and gives us hope. When we look at Jesus, our compassionate shepherd, we also see that the shepherd is a teacher. He teaches not only by his word, but he also teaches by his action. How does Jesus teach by his word? As a shepherd teacher, he tells us, come to me. Don't go anywhere else. Come to me. I'm there for you. Come to me, all of you heavy laden, overburdened, and I will give you rest. What a great shepherd. What a great teacher. So here's our shepherd verbalizing his requests for each one of us. And he knows the needs in our heart. That's a true shepherd. A shepherd perceives the needs in our heart without us telling him. He knows it. Secondly, he says, learn from me. Learn what I'm doing. Have your eyes fixed on me. Have your eyes focused on me, so that the more you observe me, the more you see me, the more you can learn from me, and the more you can imitate me and follow me. Again, Jesus the shepherd says, love as I have loved you. What a great command. Love as I have loved you. Don't love as you love one another. Love as I have loved you. And how did Jesus love us? He loved us to the very end and loved us to the cross, died on the cross for us and rose from the dead for us. Again, on the cross, in the center of his pain, he tells us and he prays out and says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. So you see where forgiveness must come from the pain in our heart. And that is what the shepherd is teaching us. Again, the shepherd is telling us that he gives himself as food, as the bread of life for each one of us. And we are hungry. A shepherd, a good shepherd who knows us, who understands us, knows that we are hungry. We are hungry for not just physical food. We are hungry for the spiritual food. We are hungry in our heart. We are hungry in our mind. We are hungry in our desire for God. And therefore the shepherd sees this and tells us that he himself is the food of life. And that is what he's going to tell us the next few Sundays, if you have your heart listening to the shepherd. And finally, he tells us as a teacher shepherd, I am with you, do not be afraid. Wow! Don't we all need that affirmation? Don't we all need that security? Not just that physical security which we all crave for. We want security in our homes. That's why we have all the locks and the bolts and the latches and everything that we seal ourselves and up with in our homes, with the alarm systems. You see how secure we are there physically. What about spiritually? That is where Jesus is telling us, I am with you always, do not be afraid. Here is our teacher shepherd who's inviting us and asking us to come to learn from him, to observe him, to see him, and to follow him, and to love him as he loves all of us, to forgive as he has forgiven each one of us. Now, from all this, what is our next question in our meditation? What is the fruit of my relationship in Jesus, the compassionate shepherd? So that's what we're going to see in a moment. What are the fruits of my relationship in Jesus, the compassionate shepherd? There must be something visible that we can all see, that we can all hold in our lives, and people observe in our lives. So when they see us, they see the compassionate shepherd reflected and mirrored in our lives. So, like Christ, if you and I are his disciples, observing him and having and keeping our eyes on him and learning from him, then like Christ, reach out to others. That's the first quality. We can live in our own self and we'll feel depressed. In fact, we'll have a lot of mental issues because we are going deeper and deeper into ourselves and we find nothing there. In fact, we'll find tension and stress. So, to balance that, we need to go out of ourselves, to reach out to others. When we can reach out to others, like Christ, then we become compassionate, we are challenged, and the best in us comes out. The second thing is, like Christ, teach them how to love. Teach them the love of Christ. What is that love of Christ? Sacrifice. Now, very often we are all afraid of sacrifice, but that's the essence of our life. Sacrifice is the essence of our Christian living. What is sacrifice? Putting the needs of others first, before ours, before my needs. When I have that courage, our lives will be tremendously joyful and will make a difference around us. Like Christ, also learn to forgive. Is forgiveness easy? No, forgiveness is never easy. It comes from the very depth of the pain, of the hurt that we are going through. But with Christ, as we are imitating Christ, the compassionate shepherd, then forgiveness becomes an integral mark in our life. And like Christ, be there for people in their need. Remember what Jesus said? And this is the hallmark of compassion. When I was hungry, where were you? When I was thirsty, where were you? When I was unemployed, where were you? These are the hallmarks of compassion in our life. And Jesus continues that saying and said, if you've done this to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you've done it to me. So like Christ, be an example to others, to lead others to Christ. That's the whole purpose of our life. As a disciple, I mirror Jesus in my life so that people who see me can say, wow, here is Jesus, and I'd like to follow the visible Jesus in my life. And you and I become those credible disciples. This is compassion in action. This is compassion people want to see in us. And this is compassion that will draw people to Christ. We are not the main figure in all this. It's Christ Jesus. And our compassion, our sharing of compassion, our living of compassion will bring people to know Jesus, our compassionate shepherd. This is compassion that will help us create a new world, a world of forgiveness, a world of acceptance, a world of recognition, affirmation, and love. Let Christ, the compassionate shepherd, work through us. So on this beautiful 16th Sunday of the year, ordinary Sunday of the year, and we look at Christ, the compassionate shepherd, let us in turn become compassionate shepherds for Christ to others.